you have the book to your own intuition. I think sometimes we think we have to be perfect before we get married or we find the person, but really we can find self-love after marriage. And I'm still learning every day how to love myself better and be my biggest cheerleader.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lexi Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I'm really excited to dive into today's process episode with TBM member Lexi. Lexi's story really helps to highlight how all parts of our life come up when we're facing the tests and blocks that may be standing in the way of our manifestation. How our relationship or family life can be impacting our career, our purpose. How home and travel can be impacted by friendships, and what it means when you are manifesting in one section but completely tested in the other. Hint, hint, they are interconnected, and how you navigate one sets the tone for how you navigate the other, because it helps you to bolster and build your self-worth from multiple different angles. We also dive into what can happen so many times when our manifestations come through or we receive the thing that we've always wanted. How can we actually settle into it and allow it to integrate into our life without some of our fears popping up? Fear of abandonment, fear of losing it, fear of it not being what we've witnessed growing up, what our normal was, and how do we recalibrate and change what our version of happiness and relationships and career might look like? How do we open our minds to a broader possibility, one that might even be better than what we wrote down on our manifestation list? We're going to dive into all that and more today. And if you guys are still wanting to utilize all the goodness that is inside our summer challenge, find your biggest block, that root block that spider webs out to all these areas of your life, it's going to be available until September 2nd at 11:59 p.m. PST. All the DIs will still be available, but you won't have the walkthrough of the challenge. And we do this intentionally. A lot of people ask questions about this, but we do this intentionally because we found when we open the challenge for a set period of times, the volume of people that actually step through, commit, and complete is so extremely high. And the return on the other side, meaning what they manifest, what they have unblocked, how they feel about themselves, their sense of confidence, their entire universe gets up-leveled in such a big way, having them in these time block containers. Of course, there is always the possibility to bring it back as a permanent workshop if it's a real fan favorite, like we are doing with another previous challenge soon, hint, hint. But the summer unblocking one will only be available until September 2nd. So utilize it while you can. And another fun manifestation note before we jump in, the team has truly been manifesting merch for so long. We have been begging Lexi. We're like, please, I just want a sweat set to sit in, to do my DIs, to feel cozy. We've been asking her and asking her and asking her. And finally, we manifested this amazing company that we can work with to get incredible, high quality, sustainable, organic materials and bring you guys some merch. So we're going to start with a single drop. We have a couple different styles. And if you go into the community group, we want to hear from you. What styles speak to you? Which one would you purchase? We're going to start with a very simple crew neck first. And if it's something you guys like, we'll make more of it. And if not, then you guys have a fun crew neck for the time being. But this is really a labor of love from the team. All of the team members really wanted this. You guys have been requesting merch forever. And so we're going to kind of dip our toe into this, and we really want to manifest it with you guys. So log into the community group. Right on the top, it'll be pinned. You can vote on your favorite style, what you like about it, the material, the color, all of those fun things. And let's co-manifest some cozy TBM merch.
And now, a word from our partners.
Speaking of manifestations, one major manifestation that has come through for me recently is Bond Charge's infrared PEMF mat. Their PEMF mat, which stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field, is a magnetic energy mat that sends energy waves to work with your body's natural magnetic field and improve your overall well-being. Now, I originally heard of PEMF mats back in the day. I used the first one at Lacey's Forest Retreat House, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to do anything at first. And when I laid on this mat, I'm telling you, my whole body just relaxed. My nervous system relaxed, and I fully was able to calm down. Fast forward a few years later, one of our absolute favorite companies, Bond Charge, has launched their own PEMF mat, and it is fully loaded with all the best biohacking techniques you can imagine. So not only do they have multiple frequency settings, one for delta waves to improve deep sleep, one for grounding and earthing that is in the frequency of Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic field frequency, one for alpha waves to increase calm creativity, one for beta waves for logical thinking, conscious thought, or meditation, and one that cycles through all four to really align all different parts of your body. But that's not all. They also have red, near infrared, and far infrared light wave frequencies. You've heard me talk about this before, but red light therapy can be so impactful for muscle soreness, tension, pain in the body, detoxification, and so many more things. It is also packed with tourmaline gemstones, germanium gemstones, and amethyst crystals, which all help to balance your mood, keep you calm, activate spiritual awareness, open intuition, and attract positive ions from your body to keep you in that balanced state. And really exciting news from Bond Charge that all of their products, if you have an HSA or an FSA account, they're all eligible, giving you tax-free savings up to 40% on any product you buy from Bond Charge. This is huge. And it's also really cool that they're getting recognized for how much these biohacking products are impacting your health in such a meaningful way. So if you are interested in trying Bond Charge's new infrared PEMF mat, you can use the code MAGNETIC, that's all caps, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Again, that's magnetic, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Or you can go to bondcharge.com/pages/magnetic and check out some of the other incredible biohacking low EMF products that Bond Charge has to offer.
All right, on to the episode.
We're so excited to have you here today. Let's kick off with your sun, moon, and rising sign.
Yes, Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Mercury, which just totally makes sense because I just radiate Pisces energy. The way I communicate, I think my essence, I'm super creative, intuitive, empathetic.
So what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how do you feel like your childhood informed who you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I always make jokes that I'm nature, the sunny, warm, polite, happy Floridian girl, and nurture, the talk fast, think fast, walk fast Jersey girl, because my parents are both from Jersey and moved to Tampa without any family or friends to raise us. So I don't know. I know you're from Jersey, right, Jessica? I don't know if that resonates for you.
Yes. I was with actually a friend from Jersey this past week, and just being in her energy, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's such a distinct kind of thumbprint where it's very unapologetic and very direct.
Yes, direct. That's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. But basically, my parents got divorced when I was around 13, and my dad was a little checked out even before that. So a lot of my story is about growing up with this just amazing mom. I mean, she was a breadwinner. She was this really successful sales rep in IBM. which was a big deal back then. And she was also really in tune with me and my sister's emotions. So she really kind of filled both roles. That kind of created me, my sister, and my mom to be really these three musketeers. We're super close, but it also almost created this subconscious block for me. And it feels funny saying out loud, but like, what's the point of men? What do they bring to the table? Like, we've been fine all these years without them. And I never really had many good male role models in my life. So a lot of my story is about overcoming that, finding love, and then how I found self-love through love and eventually used that to manifest my dream career and dream healing.
I think a lot of people can resonate, especially if someone's been raised by a single mom and seen that. Yeah, my parents divorced probably around the same age range as you as well. And my mom was the primary caretaker. And so seeing her kind of juggle a million one things, okay, how are we going to get this done? I think when parents divorce, oftentimes the kid becomes more of an adult at the age that the parents divorced. They have to figure out, okay, with this lack of connection between the two parents and that family unit, what do I do to like make sure we're safe, make sure we're solid, make sure we're on good footing? Curious, did you feel like you had to grow up early? Did you get the sayings from people like, oh, you're so mature for your age? Or do you feel like you took on a lot of adult responsibilities earlier on?
I definitely think so. Actually, my whole story of the recent summer challenge is all about how I realized I had this block of, I can handle it. I can handle things. Like I always am kind of the first person to jump in and solve a problem. And I don't even think it's because my mom ever put that pressure on me. I just think it's the times that she was naturally not home. I was the older sibling, and I had to decide what to do when things went wrong. I even remember one time my sister was sick, and it was just us two at home. And I was like, how do I make her? I think she wasn't even sick. She hurt her knee on something, and she was crying. And I went to the fridge and got Hawaiian punch and put it on a spoon. And was like, here's some medicine. And 5 minutes later, she's like, I feel better. But this like pressure to always know what to do. And that's actually one of my biggest insecurities. And another one of my blocks that I've recently been working through is I should know what to do. I should know the answer to this. And realizing like, oh my gosh, all those years I did know what to do. Like I did do the right thing. And a lot of it's a lot less knowing and a lot more feeling your feelings in your body and your intuition. And I think I did a really good job of that as a kid. And I just want to go back and praise the inner child Lexi for those times, because I think sometimes she just thought it wasn't really a big deal.
Oh, I so resonate with that on so many levels. I think too, when you have that, like, okay, I'm so capable, I can do all of that, you can see how that can build healthy self-esteem. But actually what I've found happen is in part it does, but in part, it's almost a never-ending cycle. There's always something else that you should know or could do. And because you are so capable at so many things, you're so self-aware of all the things that you can take care of and get done, those moments where you're just like, I don't know what to do here, I'm at a loss, those kind of still moments feel so deeply uncomfortable where you're like, wait, I need an answer, I need a solution, I need an action.
Yeah, definitely getting used to sitting in the in-between, I think, has been a really big lesson for me recently.
So how did you find TBM? What were you seeking at the time? What was coming up for you in your life? And what did you first manifest, or what did you first have on your list?
Let's see. I had found TBM right after a crazy rock bottom where I was working this 60-hour-a-week job at a healthcare tech company in New York City, and all of a sudden I couldn't talk. Literally could not talk. And I found out that I had polyps on my vocal cords and had to get the same surgery as Adele and Miley Cyrus, even though I'm not a singer. And I couldn't talk for 3 months, and I had to do this 3-month medical leave. And looking back, it was just the universe, first of all, showing me like you need to learn how to relax and regulate. And second of all, I think it was the first of many breadcrumbs that the universe gave me, leading me to my true calling, trying to push me out of the corporate world and get me into a place where I'm leading my own business and I'm empowering others to find true healing through functional health and subconscious reprogramming. But basically, I had decided I was going to move away from New York and find something a little more low-key in Boston. So me and my boyfriend at the time, his name is Charlie, he's now my husband, But we moved to Boston together, and I did find this amazing job, really good pay, really good culture, really good work-life balance. And I was ready to find long-term friendships because I just knew in my, I guess, intuition that I was going to be in Boston for the long run. And so my friend from college actually was hosting these monthly new moon meetups. I went to them, and one of the girls there had done TBM. So she brought it up. We weren't really doing TBM at these meetings, but I got into it. And then funnily enough, the group dissolved because people had babies, people moved out of state. I felt so alone in Boston. I wanted these deep conversations. I wanted to talk about this work. And I finally realized it was my Leo rising energy pushing me to start it. So I started my own new moon meetup that was more TBM focused. And now we have this really, really special Boston community. And we even actually just met weekly during the recent challenge to hold each other accountable.
So I also want to point out too, because you're not in Boston anymore, so you're still able to lead this virtually and digitally. Because I think that's a question a lot of people have is, okay, there are people that were interested in this type of stuff where I used to live, but I had to move and I'm starting fresh again. Like, how can I connect with them and how can I have those interactions or those conversations? And you're such a great expander of like, you don't have to be in the exact same vicinity as someone. You can have a fully virtual digital meetup with someone to have those deep connections.
Yeah, and it's so funny you say that because I had to like mentally prepare myself before I left. I'm like, Lexi, you're going to have no friends in Colombia. Like, you're going to feel alone because I'm just the classic extrovert. And the exact opposite happened, I think, because I had just such healthy detachment is I stayed in touch with these girls through the WhatsApp group. I feel like we're even closer. And then on top of that, I posted on the TBM page, there's a map and I put, I'm in Colombia. And so I ended up also manifesting 3 friends here locally. So that's been really cool because the 4 of us have all grown close. We all talk about TBM and we're all solopreneurs. So we really connect on multiple levels. And I didn't really have any friends that were entrepreneurs back in Boston. So it's been really magical.
What would be one piece of advice you'd give someone who's kind of like, they want to host a group or they want to like put themselves out there, but they're scared of no one responding, or they're scared of like, oh, do I know enough about it to be hosting something, or all the sort of doubt and fear that can creep into someone's mind? What would be a piece of advice you would give them now that you've done it and completely excelled on the other side?
Yeah, just close your eyes and do it because the people that show up they want to talk too, usually. No matter who's in what room, you have a couple manifesting generators, maybe a couple projectors, like a couple different types of people with different energies. So yes, there might be a couple people that come there and are a little more shy, even if you are also, but there's probably going to be some people there that come that's been doing the work for a while that can facilitate questions. And I even remember the first night I had written down like questions to bring everyone through, and I didn't even like use them when we got there. We all just talked about how we found TBM and what we were manifesting, and it was just really, really natural. But I also love hosting, but I still think, again, the types of people that are drawn to this community are just so kind that you don't have to worry.
Okay, so you hit this rock bottom. I also think it's interesting, the vocal cords and how now in your purpose and with your career, you're sharing advice, you're using your voice. There was almost a blocked throat chakra from like speaking your truth or being really, truly authentic. How did that rock bottom, like what did you uncover standing in the way between what was actually calling to you and the corporate job? And then how did you find love and all of those things too?
Oh my gosh. So there's 3 different stories running in parallel here, right? There's, again, the health one, which is I thought, okay, I went to speech therapy. I did the breath work. I learned how to relax. I implemented something called Relaxation Mondays because remember, I'm like a nonstop New Yorker, going to Soul Cycle in the morning, drinks after. So having this Relaxation Mondays where I'm not allowed to do anything but take a bath or get a massage was like huge for me. But basically, I thought my health was only going to get better, and the opposite happened. And then the career kind of followed a lot of the health triggers. And I guess the love is really maybe the best place to start, because right when I started this work, I had actually just gotten engaged to my husband, Charlie. And so I even remember starting the work and being like, I wish I would have had this, before I met my person, because I could have been so much more, I don't know, specific and confident and authentic. But it still really helped me through the 1.5 year engagement phase, which was really hard for me because I was so excited. This is probably the best year of my life because we got engaged, we got our dog, and we bought our dream house. But to my inner child, this was not the case. And I didn't really realize this at the time, right? I can only really see this looking back. My inner child was panicking as I got engaged because my 2 deepest fears in life have always been getting divorced or losing myself or someone I love to cancer early on, which even just getting married, it's could I eventually lose this person? So both of these fears were bubbling up, and I didn't really know that these were all these inner child's feelings and thoughts back then, right? I just knew I felt completely emotionally unstable, even though my body felt so safe around Charlie. And I think this, again, just really speaks to the intelligence of our bodies and why I love human design. It's sometimes your body knows more and your mind either needs to catch up or it needs some reprogramming. This is really the part where I start to realize that this, again, inner child is looking outwards to confirm I made the right decision and I'm not going to get divorced. And ironically, these people around me are picking up on my projections.
Okay, this is a huge thing to talk about because we get this question a lot where people are in partnerships and then they start doing the TBM work and they're like, shoot, there maybe were things I would have called in before, or could I have a more aligned partner, and is it fully from my authenticity, and is this the right dynamic for me? If I'm feeling this, does this mean it's wrong or I'm settling? And I think it can be really confusing, especially if you have those fears around divorce. If you have a fear of what's going to happen when this relationship goes to the next level. I think every time a relationship deepens, whether that's you decide to be officially boyfriend, girlfriend, you say I love you for the first time, you move in together for the first time, you get engaged, you get married, you have kids, all of these life moments, I think are those moments where it's really important to attune to the inner child narrative because they're going to have a reaction at the closeness that's happening. So how did you discern, is this the right situation for me? Is this my intuition telling me this isn't the right person and I should just jump ship and get out? Or do I just need to sit with my inner child because my body's literally telling me I am safe. I know in my heart that this is the right person, but how do I remedy all these other things? How did you start to pull all of that apart?
I think the first thing is just having at least 1 or 2 friends that you just feel so safe with and you can share all these doubts, because the more that you suppress these doubts, and sometimes they're healthy, right? They kind of bubble up more. And I just remember one of my best friends saying to me when we were wedding dress shopping, Lexi, you've been like this since the beginning of college. Doubt is your biggest strength. And so when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, because I at one point went through a little religious stint and I was always the girl in the Christian group, questioning and doubting. And that was actually how we became friends, because we had these bigger philosophical questions. And so it was oh yeah, that is me, right? That's authentic. The authentic Lexi does doubt. But basically all of these fears pushed me to become the #1 researcher. I was we're going to be the most prepared couple in the world for marriage. And the first thing I did, actually, I've never heard of the word codependent before TBM. So through a podcast or something, I was introduced to the word codependent, and I ended up reading Codependent No More. And I basically learned I had codependent tendencies in most of my relationships. But I think my favorite question that I learned to ask myself is, what will you forsake? What will you give up for the sake of connection? Or where do you hide in life for the sake of connection? And I was subconsciously downplaying the love I was in with Charlie for the sake of belonging with my family and friends. This is because, again, it was me, my sister, and my mom against the world. It was, oh, we're independent, we don't need a man. That was kind of the energy I felt like we grew up with. Additionally, looking back, I just had no expanders of anyone that had been married, still been a leader, or really involved in their circle of female friends, and killing it in the workforce. And I wanted all three. And, I think a lot of that is societal. Like, I think ever since the pandemic, there's been more space for women to balance that a little bit better. But I just truly didn't know anyone that exemplified that for me. And again, we did a bunch of work. I had a life coach at the time, and she recommended that me and Charlie read The 7 Effective Strategies to a Successful Marriage by the Gottmans. I cannot recommend this book enough. If you're worried about your relationship, whether it's before marriage or after marriage, this will either affirm and blow away all your fears, kind of like what it did for me, and it will give you exercises to strengthen it even more. And so when I learned about the ways that I was contributing to anything that was problematic in our relationship, that created space for us to work on that together.
I think that's so beautiful that you were facing those fears head on instead of making a drastic decision one way or the other. On one angle, you could have been like, okay, I'm just going to suppress all of it, not look at it, and then just get married. And the other end is you could be like, oh, fears, okay, I'm out, and then leave. But the answer so often is not, when people write in and have those questions about their relationship, it's not a go or stay. It's a sit with the muck. Sit with what is in front of you right now. Sit with those dynamics. Work through them together. Step through your fears of offending the other person. State what your needs are. Share what's coming up for you. Share the fears that are coming up for you. That's how you deepen that relationship. And that's how you can really tell, like, okay, is this the relationship that's going to stand the test of time with me and they're in it to win it, or we're not on the same page, and then you'll know. But I think so many times people avoid the actual work it takes together in a relationship. They checked all of my boxes. They're my full list. Even in the early dating phases, people are so antsy to say, like, is this my person or is this just a test? Let it play out. Stay present to each experience and let it play out and see what comes up for you. And I really feel like, Lacey says this all the time, but all relationships in our life are mirrors for our own highest evolution, for our own highest growth that are preparing us. So the worst case scenario of you going in and doing that hard work with someone else is you evolve, regardless of what happens on the other side. So I just want to encourage anyone in relationships who may be at a sticking point or maybe in a hard time, or you're working through something, to keep going, to keep pulling back the layers, to have that accountability. Like you were saying, like, whoa, when I looked at my side of the street, I was like, okay, I got to change some stuff here and there, really have those moments, because I think that's where it's all about.
And maybe that's the perfect transition to how I realized what I needed to own in the relationship. I mean, first of all, I just want to emphasize, even though I talked to my friends about the doubts, I talked to Charlie about all of my doubts. And him coming back being calm, cool, and collective was the best sign for me. And it was really in that moment where I realized, oh, would I feel this way no matter who I'm marrying? Like, if I was delivered this perfect man in a box from above, would I still be worried? And it was like, yes. So it was like, okay, the fear is about marriage, not about Charlie. It has nothing to do with him. And so that really helped. But I think the other part is, again, I'm super extroverted. He's super introverted. I think some people were a little surprised by my choice in him, and sometimes would be maybe even triggered being around him because he can be really quiet and to himself. He's not the super outgoing Floridian that sometimes we're used to, and he's really artistic, and he also has really healthy boundaries. And so an example of this is we would go on a family vacation with my family, and our family is super high energy, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., nonstop, no relaxation, constant girl chatter, about makeup and hair. So it's kind of hard for a man to come in that's pretty quiet, pretty intellectual, and join in. And he would want to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes every day. And I didn't meditate back then, and I didn't understand the benefits. So instead of embracing him, I would get embarrassed and try to get him to assimilate with my family. We don't have time to meditate today. We have all this itinerary. And I would say really, really toxic things like, don't you love me enough to morph and be more like my family just so that they like you? And looking back, it was, of course, this like fear of rejection. I just wanted him to be accepted. I didn't know what it was like to have this male role in our girl dynamic. And it wasn't really until my husband was actually on the Brene Brown podcast that we started, again, together, reading about Brene Brown. And I read about her definition of resentment, which just, I felt so seen. And it's basically, if you have these feelings of I'm better than. And I was like, that's what I do in this relationship. I'm better than Charlie because I don't need to meditate all day or anytime during the day. I'm better than Charlie because we both worked a long day and I'm still cooking and cleaning and he's resting. And it was that moment of like, oh, or are you just triggered that you would never give yourself permission to rest? You think you have to do all these things. This is really where Charlie became my biggest expander for self-love. And I think sometimes we think we have to be perfect before we get married or we find the person. But really, we can find self-love after marriage. And I'm still learning every day how to love myself better and be my biggest cheerleader.
I love the examples you shared too, because I think they're so universal. Like you can plug and play that with any two behaviors in a relationship and in a dynamic. I think there also is a bit of the like Disney fairy tale. There's an idealized version of like, if it's true love, they will do anything for me. They will have no boundaries. They will transform whatever. They will help me clean when I want to clean. They will hang out with my parents and laugh all day long. It's a very unrealistic fantasy. If anyone is in the dreamer archetype of TBM blind spots, that's where you're going to find your thoughts about relationship. Even the discerner of just being so critical of wanting them to meet us where we are without any curiosity about where they are and what we can learn from where they are. And I think that is a normalized and also encouraged behavior, especially when there's like the meeting of the families where it's you should adopt to whatever family you're meeting and they're, you know, what they're doing. And there's a lot of self-neglect that happens in those interactions. And I think there's a lot of places for us all to evolve in them because traditionally it's like you meet the other family, you do whatever they do, you don't say anything, you show up to the events, whatever. But we're kind of in this time where we're exploring, like, what do I need authentically to be my best self? And where do I need to have those settled boundaries? For him to be his best self, he needed those 20 minutes of meditation. And it's so funny because probably now you'd be like, I'm so impressed he took those 20 minutes of meditation. That's amazing. It's totally transformed because in seeing him honor his needs and his boundaries, it's inviting you to do the same for yourself when you're around his family. If they're doing something, you know, maybe you want to be go, 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 and they're more in a rest mode. I don't know. I'm totally pulling a random example. But you can then take that to, okay, I planned a day for myself because I just love feeding off of that energy. Like, how do you honor yourself when you're with family that doesn't necessarily have the same things without completely people pleasing and becoming a version of yourself that you don't even recognize? I can definitely be guilty of that so much so where I'm like, I just want to fit in. I want to be easy. I don't want to be problematic. I want it to be like a fun time. And then the end of the day, you're like, did I do anything for myself? Did I just go along with what everyone wanted to do? And needing to take those pauses.
It's so funny you say that because to your point, now I actually meditate twice a day, every day. Like he's had that influence on me. And then even vice versa, like again, one thing we have again similar is that we're both generally very intellectual, but again, he's born and raised in Boston, a lot of intellectual energy, and I'm pretty spiritual. And he's now seen the benefits of TBM and some of these other practices, and now he's incorporating those. And I think it's because I, quote unquote, stepped out of the spiritual closet. I've embraced how much this work has helped me. Before, I think I would have been nervous to bring this stuff up in front of his family. And now I feel really comfortable doing that. They all like make jokes and know who I am and love me for it. So it's been a really cool way, I think, over the last 2 years that both of us are just so much more authentically ourselves in each other's families. And I think we both feel really loved and accepted in both settings.
At TBM, we talk a lot about the mind-body connection. And one thing I can't get out of my head is something that Dr. Tara said a while back, and how one way to start to rebuild that connection or enhance or deepen that connection between the mind and body is while you're in the shower, intentionally giving all of your body parts love. Now, this made me think about how my shower could be this task that I have to get done to this incredible ritual of self-love. And one of the products I utilize to help me do this is Osea's Body Collection. And Osea just launched their most anticipated product to date, their Undaria Algae Body Wash. When I tell you the smell of this is just so heavenly, it's citrusy, it almost has like a grapefruit, lemon, orange scent to it. And as with all of Osea's other products, it's completely natural, plant-based ingredients that help support your skin. So it doesn't disrupt your skin microbiome or disrupt your pH. It actually makes your skin feel really nourished after. The worst thing ever after showering is when you use a body wash or a body bar and your skin feels kind of dry and cakey. This does not have that effect at all. It leaves it feeling supple and soft and really moisturized. All of their skincare is clean, vegan, cruelty-free, and climate-neutral certified. So it is not only supporting your body, but also the planet. So if you want to treat your body to feeling like a day at the spa, I highly recommend their new Undaria Algae Body Wash. And you can top it off with a little Undaria Algae Body Oil or their body butter afterwards to just really lock in all of the moisture. They even have travel sizes, so if you are on the go, it is the perfect little 1.5 ounce to stack in your bag and have that experience on the go. Up-level your shower with Osea's clean vegan body care. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code TBM10 at oseamalibu.com. That's OSEA Malibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on order of $60 or more. So head to oseamalibu.com and use code TBM10 for 10% off.
So we have just moved to Boston and I've healed from the surgery. And now I really still want to get to the root cause of like, why did I even have the surgery in the first place? Because of course, conventional medicine never tells you that. And I knew there was something deeper going on. And so I start to fix my nutrition. I remove all processed foods. I decrease alcohol. I cook 90% of my meals at home, anti-inflammatory diet, all of that. And I still have PCOS and cystic acne. So I decided to start sourcing help from functional doctors. And I see 3 different ones, all of them help me get one step forward, but not to the root cause. And so an example is one helped me remove my birth control, which was a triggering experience in itself. But then I actually felt worse after. If you don't know, a lot of times things get worse before they get better after you get your birth control removed. So I started getting these crazy menstrual migraines. Like they would knock me out. Actually, Jessica, the funniest thing is, they would always come on days 19 to 23 of my cycle. And today is day 23, which I wouldn't be able to record this podcast. I would be in bed with listening to a TBN podcast with blindfolds on and an ice pack on my head. But I just start to have these menstrual migraines and I go to a bunch of different doctors to try to get help. At the same time, it's the pandemic. So I get a certified health coach certification and I start offering nutrition coaching just after my 9 to 5. So I love my 9 to 5 corporate job as a consultant at a health plan. And then I do this afterwards. I basically did this for a year and it didn't burn me out at all. I had, again, there was nothing to do and I'm a really high energy person. But there were 2 problems. The first was I knew I needed functional labs for my clients and myself. I knew I was helping my clients, but not moving the needle like I wanted to for them or for me. But the problem was everyone I knew that did functional labs was an MD, and I wasn't going to go become a doctor. And so, I just had no expanders, but I felt really stuck. And then the second one was I wanted to do this full time, but I didn't see how I could make that transition. So I ended up being really bold and going to my manager, who I had a great relationship with, and I asked him if I could move to a 4-day work week. This is what I like to call my boomerang process during the manifestation process, where you have this idea, you're super excited about it, and you throw it into the world and you just wait, you practice detachment and healthy letting go, and you see what comes back. And if I'm able to practice that healthy detachment, an idea that's even better always comes back. And so that's what happened, actually. My manager came back with 2 options. He said, you can take the 4-day work week, but it'll come with a 20% paid decrease. Or you can stay for another year and we'll give you about a 20% retention bonus. And so me and my husband talked and we ended up going with the latter because it just felt safe and like it would create space for more ideas to come in. And really, this was the foundation for our FU fund, which for those of you who don't know, it's like, your financial cushion for making a big jump like this. So now it's like time has gone by. It's like December 2022, and everyone has these big things on their manifestation list. I'm really into TBM now, and most people obviously want to manifest physical things. And I'm like, the only thing I want is a vision of how to make this my full-time job. And I've kind of felt stupid, like writing down a vision because how is that going to come to me? Like, why can't I just creatively think of one? My husband and I go on our honeymoon. We're sitting at a rooftop bar in Medellin, Colombia. And I'm just like, I wish there was a way that I could do this full time. And he just turns to me and he's like, what if we moved here? You could live off my salary. You could have 100% freedom to play and fail forward with your business. It's beautiful climate and beautiful culture. And I just think, like, first of all, if you guys know my husband, again, he's this introvert. He loves routine, loves familiarity. This is insane that he offered this. He does not love to travel. And I just think it was so beautiful that the idea came from him, because if I would have proposed it, I would have always been worrying that I was pressuring him. But because it came from him, it was like I always knew he was fully on board. And then this is really where all the tests start coming in. So I think I am the luckiest person in the world when I married into Charlie's family, because his parents are the complete opposite as mine. And I say that in a way that compliments all 5 of my parental figures, because they're all so different and they all offer different ways of how to create a sturdy family structure. They all provide different types of wisdom that allow me to combine them all, really. Of course, whenever you're first up against the opposite of what you're used to, it can be naturally triggering. And so I was really only used to my parents being there when I needed them. So I really had this false belief that if someone offers or steps in to help you without you asking them, I'm doing something wrong. And I really perceived all this help as criticism, even though now I know them very well and it never was criticism. And so examples of this were, they had a extra family car that they weren't using. They said we could use it. And I didn't feel comfortable with this, but don't rock the boat. It's fine. We'll just use the car. What could go wrong? And another was that they wanted to rent our house while we went abroad to help us with the transition, because we were like racing to finish this renovation. And so they were trying to help, but I felt guilty making them pay the full mortgage. And we needed the full mortgage to support this whole career jump. And on top of that, we really wanted to eventually get more property. So this was a perfect test run to be landlords. And so really I was uncomfortable with all of these tests that were coming in, but I didn't really say anything. And I didn't really realize why I was uncomfortable until, of course, I did the subconscious work afterwards, after all the emotional triggers. And really there were 2 big subconscious beliefs that I identified. So one was, okay, Charlie's family lives in Boston with me. My family lives in New York and Florida. The closer I get to them, the farther I get from my sister and my parents, which is just like not true. But sometimes you feel this like subconscious way of like, oh, I'm not cheating on my family, but is it possible to have it all? Which is just so funny because I've always wanted a really big family. So I'm actually getting what I want. And I had to like train myself of like, you can create space in your life for these new, because Charlie has 3 siblings, right? For these new people, these 5 new people. And that was kind of the smaller one. The bigger one was I realized I was really ready to create the structure of me and Charlie's nuclear family. What does the Charlie, Lexi, and Chester as our dog family look like? And how can we really, really lean on each other fully and then bring in other supporting structures. And really, I look back to my childhood and realized, wow, when my dad's dad died when I was in 3rd grade, that wrecked him. That was like where things started to change in the family dynamic. And then when his mom died, that year is when my parents got divorced. And it was probably just coincidental. But the story that my inner child was saying was, hey, Charlie's parents aren't always going to be around to save you as a couple. You need to be able to know, Lexi, that you and Charlie can make it on your own, that you can save up money and get your own car, or, just lean on each other. And I basically had to go back and tell that inner child, like, yes, it's okay to accept help and do all that subconscious programming. And then I think also just the lived experience of us moving to Colombia and not knowing anyone in the whole country and having to lean on each other has really even sped up the whole reprogramming process even more. So the lived experience with the subconscious reprogramming has been really, really helpful. And now I guess I feel ready to return in a year and invite them, his parents and my parents, in to help us with the next era of kids and really creating, I think, this healthy interdependence dynamic, which a lot of times they say interdependence is the opposite of codependence. I think moving to Colombia has changed my perception a lot about how family and community works in the US. In the US, we've really come to value individualism. How can I make more money, work more hours so that my family can have our own circular saw, our own nanny, Uber home from the airport, right? Like depend solely on us. And then I think there's also the other side where maybe there's lack of boundaries or codependent tendencies. And so I think we have a hard time finding the sweet spot of interdependence. Like I can rely on other people. I can ask people for help and not feel triggered when they can't show up. And the community here is, I think, a beautiful example of that, of always offering to help each other. Hey, do you need a ride? It always feels authentic. It always feels like people have the space and the room to help and speak their needs and respond authentically. And so I think, again, we feel really confident to return and start to create that structure in our neighborhood, in our community, and in our family.
So beautiful. I mean, there's so many things that you said in that. I definitely want to go back to the practicing detachment, healthy detachment, because I think that's an element too people are gonna ask about a lot. But I think you really nailed so many of the dynamics and patterns that were at play. You can interpret a trigger or a test on so many different levels. For each person, it's going to be so individual. And that's why it's important to really look at what is your inner child story that's playing out here. One person could see your parents-in-law like offering the car and be like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted a parent who could provide something for me. Like, this is amazing. I'm so excited. Can't wait to have it. You could see someone else being like, oh, they're pointing out that I can't afford it and it's a criticism and blah, blah, blah. Someone else, and in your story, it was like, oh, if we lean on them too much, then we won't be able to support each other. God forbid anything happens. It's out of that fear of loss. Same dynamic, but 3 totally different interpretations of it. And so that's why it's really getting to the root of like, what is the story that you are bringing to the table here? It could be any of the options, but which one feels resonant? Or maybe it's a completely new story. How did you go in to find those patterns and dynamic? Because I think that's something that people have a hard time connecting the dots between, I'm triggered by this, I maybe feel like I shouldn't be, or I don't understand why. How did you start to connect like, oh, dang, that is the story? Was there a DI? Was there a journal prompt? Was there a workshop? What was the thing that helped you unlock that?
Well, first of all, the juicy part and the real trigger was I run his family's car into a flash flood and I totaled the car. I kid you not, I was crying so hard. It was in like 3 feet of water. And also cars, it took like an hour for whatever, AAA to even come because it happened all over Boston. But I was crying so hard when it happened that I think the firefighter was like, do you want me to carry you out of the car? And it was like 3 feet of water. I was like, no, I'm just crying because this is not my car. And it all worked out. They ended up being really nice about it. And so that was the real trigger. So, right, step one was just sit in all of those tears, comfort, regulate, like you always say. For me, I actually, in my coaching, tell my clients to come up with 3 phases of dysregulation. Like, one is you are so dysregulated, you cannot think. You can only do things that bring you pleasure. Like for me, I have a grain bowl. I order from a really specific restaurant called Life Alive in Boston. I know I need, maybe just a hot shower and then some TV. Like, I'm not able to move into level 2, which is meditating or going for a walk, kind of more responsible ways of regulating. And then level 3 is what you would do every day proactively to regulate. And so definitely did the whole regulation period. And then I think for me, it's always a combination of going back and forth between, I really love inner child and unblocked. Those are my 2 very DIs. And then journaling and talking. And it's kind of what you talked about on the podcast with Nicole on neuroscience of like, okay, the hypnosis part is your brain moving into the hypnotic state and reaching feelings and memories that you didn't think you had access to. But you don't really always get to reprogram unless then you move back to the logical narrative state of journaling or telling a story to someone, because then you have to come up with the A, B, and C. So, I mean, I have a really, really good accountability buddy, and it's just the classic accountability buddy story where we send each other 7-minute voice notes. And I think that also helps with those aha moments.
I love that. I think the accountability piece is so important. And also that's a good note too, when you're going in, if you are connecting the dots on something that you didn't know about before for the very first time, like if you're in that DI, if you're in that meditation, you're like, oh my gosh, this connects to this connects to this. If you don't get a healing that first time, that's totally fine. The purpose of that DI was then just to uncover that. And now you get to go back. You can go through that DI or a different one again to have that healing modality after journaling, after speaking to someone, after just kind of synthesizing all of your thoughts around it. I think there is maybe this expectation that you're going to do the DI and you're going to find the root belief and then you're going to reprogram it all in one sitting. That's why it takes time. That's why we have, the daily practice. That's why we have multiple weeks of the workshop. That's why you have the space to let your brain do all the things it naturally does, to let it heal and process over time. So I just want to make that distinction too. I think that'll give people a little bit more like, oh, okay, got it. So I just keep coming back to it, showing up for it, using it from a different angle too.
Yeah, and maybe we could call it like the ping pong effect, right? Because it's like, It takes almost 20 times of going back and forth. I mean, I would say this whole timeline was probably around 6 months. It wasn't like I realized this, when the car totaled or even a month after the car totaled. It was more like, wow, all of these same tests are coming up, right? So now we have to tell them no to renting our apartment, and on the other side, we manifest these dream tenants, and that's like a whole other story. But it was more like, okay, this is clearly a theme, right? And so sometimes you need time to be able to look back at those themes. You can't see the bird's eye view until a couple months later.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the Magnetic Self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the daily practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, MAGNETIC. Now back to the episode.
And then to the boomerang effect. So this healthy detachment, that is a question we get a lot of, okay, like I'm doing the things, I got the strong ping, I took the aligned action, I feel confident, I unblocked, I'm ready to call in what I want. Where is it? What's going on? How do you cultivate that detached state?
I think a lot of times, most of the anxious energy is right after you said what you wanted out loud. My sister-in-law, actually, one of my favorite things she's ever said is one of the hardest things to say is what you want in life before you have it. So I think it's that space of I just said I wanted this thing out loud, and now I'm scared of what people are going to think if I don't get it. And so I think, obviously removing the what people think and more focusing always on the feeling. And then B, I think not necessarily finding a way to ignore it or suppress it, but just find grounding and pleasure in your life, because then you're connecting with all of these other feelings like going on a walk and feeling in love. And I don't know, I think just a lot of times we don't prioritize just pure pleasure enough. And when you can find joy in those aspects or other places of life, kind of the other stuff grows in the background. And for me, things always come through when I've almost like forgotten about it. And so the classic I'll be okay without that. But I think, to get to that place, you do have to focus on the feeling you want when it comes back, not the what or how or why. Maybe another trick to that is just, again, talking it out with people, because my husband will always help me see oh yeah, you're right, I don't need that. I would still be okay if I didn't get that. And so also just having the people around you that love you and understand you and help you see that, I could get that same feeling through a different mechanism.
I keep thinking about the thing you had on your list of okay, I want a vision for how this is going to land. How did that vision come through? So you are now in Medellin, you're planted in your new life, you're so excited to be there, passing tests, uncovering all these other dynamics, which that's how life works. You have multiple different test things happening at the same time that all kind of converge. But how did that lead up to you having a vision for your career and purpose?
Yeah, so I'm getting all these breadcrumbs of triggers, right? Health triggers. The breadcrumbs that led to my career were all these triggers around health. I'm getting these menstrual migraines. And so I actually finally realized through this third functional doctor that the reason I have these menstrual migraines is because I have severe heavy metal poisoning. So 4 times the amount of lead that's humanly safe in your body. And this makes sense, right? Because me and my husband did this renovation from our house that was built in the 1880s. I'm working with the doctor. We remove all the heavy metals. And we're 2 months out of removing the heavy metals, 3 months out. And he's like, we're done here. And I'm like, no, we're not. I still am having these menstrual migraines and we removed all the heavy metals. What is going on? And he was like, I don't know. Let's just go back to what we were doing at the beginning and put you on some progesterone cream to help you manage your estrogen. And it was that moment where I was like, absolutely not. I know there's a deeper root cause here. I had heard a little bit about gut health and I was like, what if we did gut health? And he's like, that's a great idea. And he's this New England functional doc that has written a book. And all my imposter syndrome just breaks in the best way, because I'm like, oh my God, Lexi, you were made for this. You were made to do gut healing. You were made to connect with women and understand that the goal is to remove the symptoms. We're not looking at whether or not you have a certain disease or, the heavy metals are there or not. And his gut health protocol got me 9/10 of the way healed. And now I can actually look back and see where he missed certain parts. So I'm actually going to retest myself because I have some leftover symptoms like bloating. And if anyone wants to follow on social media, I'll bring you through my whole journey and all my clients' journey. But I thought it was just so cool that all of these, again, rock bottoms and triggers of my own story was like, it's just because you were meant to be the one helping people do this. And so long story short, we, manifest these dream tenets. We come here, we manifest this dream cabin, which I can't even begin to explain how beautiful it is. For example, the owner of the best restaurant in all of Medellin, she sells raw vegan food, which is pretty unique in Medellin. And then she also sells really well-sourced organic meat, which is perfect because my husband's basically a carnivore. So we would literally go to this restaurant every day when we first moved here because we were so tired from working and doing 2 hours of Spanish. So we would go there every day. And then we arrive at this cabin that we'd booked like 8 months ago. And the landlord's like, did you know that the owner of Salud Pan, do you know this restaurant? She lives on the farm and she grows all her fruits and veggies here. And she has this outdoor kitchen. She's my biggest expander. Like, I could have never put that on a list, right? So it's stuff like that. I literally just put on my list a place that's I feel safe, secure, and inspired. And I feel so safe here. Our landlord is like an angel of a human. And then I have this inspiring neighbor. Sorry, just too many manifestations at once. But
I love it. Well, I think also there's so many themes too with love, career, purpose, security, safety, all intertwining and overlapping at once. And it's this beautiful kind of gift from the universe. We're going to have you work on your security, foundation, trust, allowing love in, allowing community in to help take care of you through your husband, through his family, through, reconnecting deeper with your family, with community, how that piggybacks and lays into the work and purpose you're supposed to do with your health, with your gut, with community, with connecting with others. Like, it all aligns. Whenever anyone says like, oh, I don't think I'm manifesting anything or nothing's come through, and I'm like, I want to learn more about your life, because I feel like you are just not seeing the things that are being alley-ooped to you, even if they're hard. It's not going to be all rainbows and butterflies. But in that, there is so much juiciness. There is so much life and wisdom to be had and cultivated from your lived life experiences and what's coming up for you. That's helping get you to a place where you can then serve, where you can then share with others, where you can help impact them to maybe have a little bit easier go at it, so they're not having the same trials and errors that you had with so many different doctors over the years too. So I just think it's so beautiful of how it all also connects at the same time.
I didn't even think about that with the community aspect, but I guess actually one more thing I just thought of as a way to like help you in that detachment phase is when we manifested our tenants, first of all, they offered to give us 15 months rent up front. I didn't even know that was possible. Wow. And this was actually because they were relocating from Australia to the US. So they had this huge relocation bonus. So for them, they could only work with someone that would accept that type of money up front. On top of that, our whole house is Australian themed, which is like really unique in Boston, like colonial traditional. Because when I renovated it, I took an online course that was based in Australia. And they were from Australia. And so all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, this wasn't about me. This was about double alignment. This family was manifesting a 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood that reminded them of home, that would accept 15 months of money up front. And I think that's just like so much when we're sitting in that anxiety stage of like, is my thing gonna come through? We always forget that like sometimes the most beautiful thing is multiple people are benefiting. We have to play with the timing of multiple things. And even here, I feel like months ago, I wouldn't admit this, but maybe I'm meant to be here to support the community in other ways, like, helping. A lot of people really want to learn English here, or my personal trainer asked if I could help him with a visa application to take his daughter to go to Disney. And so there's just a lot of times you don't realize that it's two manifestations aligning, not just about getting the thing you you want.
I love that. That literally gets me teary-eyed thinking about that and how we're all so interconnected and how much our timeline and also listening to those pings, taking that action, showing up, doing that hard thing for you to get out of your home in Boston. You had to listen to that ping to move and follow it and put in the steps and the effort to get there in order for the timeline to work out where they had a place to go and to land. And you wouldn't have known that. And all you're doing, that's what listening to pings is. It's like the universe knows the divine map and it's trying to guide you there closer. And if you're not listening, it'll use some tests and triggers to get you there closer or a rock bottom.
You're so right. It's like step one, ping. And then it brings in the test and the trigger. It's so real. It's so real.
I love your story. I think it's so expansive. I feel like you're just getting started on so many more manifestations to come. What would be one thing you would say to someone, I'm getting the ping to touch on the health? Because I think there are people in the community that are struggling with different health things, whether it's chronic illness or autoimmune or just a health journey where they can't figure out, they can't get the answers, they're not getting to the place that they want to get with their health. What would you tell someone who's just starting that journey or they've been in it for a while and they're just feeling a little bit of hopelessness?
I would say number one thing, everything's connected. And I think that's the number one thing my clients leave telling me is like, I just didn't realize how much everything I eat, I sleep, I consume, my emotions, everything's connected. And so you have the book to your own intuition, right? Only you know inside. And I think we all know this, right? For so many years, women have been gaslit in conventional medicine to be told that whatever their issues are not a problem. But even after that surgery, I knew deep down within me that everything wasn't working the way it should be working. Follow your pings to find the practitioner that resonates with you. You're 90% more likely to be successful in talk therapy if you personally connect and admire and respect the person you're working with. And so when you go in to find a practitioner to help you, do you feel that way? Or was that just the first name that came up when you looked under someone to be covered in your insurance? Oh, the second thing, this is the biggest thing. I have so many friends that are like, oh, I've already spent all this money. I understand that. But how can you spend that money in a way that feels like you're investing in yourself? I call it in manifestation the nickel of faith step for me is like, what's one thing I can do to invest in myself to support the next step of this manifestation? Is it buying the flight to Medellin, even though I don't even know where we're going to stay yet and how we're going to get a visa and pay taxes? So for your health, is it how can I save this money and put it towards my health, hoping that this will snowball? And so it's just more investing in yourself and following your intuition. Sorry, that was a loaded response.
I love it. I think that's so helpful. Thank you so much, Lexi. Where can people find you, connect with you, book sessions, all the things?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram as Lexi Soul Coaching. That's LEXISULLCOACHING. And you can sign up for my 6-month gut healing package in the link in my bio. Secondly, I am hosting a retreat in Mexico City in early December, and it's all about connecting with your gut and healing it from a physical and physiological perspective. And I'm sure there'll be a bunch of work to do with the Winter TBM Challenge. You can sign up to be on the wait list and receive more information about the retreat if you're interested in that. And then I guess lastly, if anyone's interested in the same gut healing certification program that I went through, feel free to just DM me RWS, which stands for Restorative Wellness Solutions. That's the program I did. I love that certification. I manifested that certification myself. And for anyone else out there that's like, I want to be in this work, but I don't know where to start, I think they do a beautiful job of blending science and real-time client experiences to have protocols that actually work.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. This has been so much fun.
I hope hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lexi, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out The Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios, where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.